Alright, so this is a Q&A that we're doing. One of the questions was, does it get tense in our tiny house, especially in the winter times? And yeah, of course it does. Sometimes fights even happen.
I told you I was supposed to play my toy.
Boys, what's going on with over there? Make it right.
I'm sorry, Josh. John, please forgive me. Forgive you for playing with the toy. I'm sorry for attacking you. Please forgive me. Okay. Can you please forgive me?
But most of the time, we just avoid conflict from occurring by giving the boys outlets, like having them come out and play and making sure they're out in creation playing a bunch. And if they're not out in creation playing, do things inside that are constructive. And really, honestly, with their chores, the animals they have, the gardening, all the stuff that we have, there's so many outlets that the tenseness really gets mitigated just because of those outlets. So that is the number one. And just practicing encouragement and love to one another. If you practice those things, you practice kindness, you practice loving each other. That really just helps mitigate the vast majority of the tenseness and the outbreaks, stuff like that. Alright, Scooter, so we were asked if, because we live in a tiny house, does it ever get tense in our house? Do we ever have arguments and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. And so how do we deal with it?
Well, if there's ever a disagreement or an argument or something like that, my dad has taught me, and you've taught me, to just make sure you make it right with the person after, try to cool off first, then make it right with the person and try to work things out peacefully.
Yeah. And what's like one of the first things you need to say to somebody if you've wronged them?
Well, you can say, that's wrong, please forgive me, or I'm sorry, please forgive me.
So I do the whole, that's wrong, please forgive me. It's got to be from the heart. And as well, what it does is when you do that, you give the other person that you've wronged an opportunity to forgive you. And that's a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
Huh, yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you, Scooter.
You're welcome.
Okay, so another question we had from one of our awesome patrons was, how much money on groceries each month do we spend? Hey, Boo. Yeah. And what are our needs yearly, money-wise? There was another question very similar to that. Are we spending less than 85% of our income on food during the growing season? So I'll clump that together. How much on groceries do we spend a month? Just groceries. We spend anywhere from $1,200 to $1,800 a month just on groceries. Now Carrie figured $1,200 to $1,600. So I'm going to round up just because I like doing that. Because you always end up spending more than you think anyways. So that's how much we're spending on groceries. Now when we talked about the 85% of our income goes towards food expense, we also included our household items in that, the animal feed, and all of that. So it was really a big category that we clumped together. During the growing season, we definitely spend less on our groceries. Just even our groceries, we spend less, quite a bit. During our growing season, that's when we're down to like the $1,200 a month. So $1,200 a month, and then after winter is set in for a while, we're spending more on our groceries. That's when we get up to the $1,800, $1,600 range of our spending. So that's where we're at with that. Now our yearly needs, I would say our yearly needs are about $33,000 a year. And that'll cover our just basic needs at this point in time. Now once this homestead is set up, once we're growing all the food we want to grow and we have all the systems in place, our financial needs are going to go down significantly. So bear with us and continue joining us on this journey of getting this homestead set up and accomplish this dream. Here's another question. Do you celebrate holidays? Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, etc.? If yes, what traditions do you have? If I want to send a gift, can I send it another way other than through Patreon? So I'll address that last one first. Yes, we have a P.O. box. The P.O. box we have down in the description of the videos, plus it should be on our About page. We also have a PayPal set up through our blog. That's the Thousands of Roots at WordPress blog. That's also linked on our YouTube About page and in the description of the show notes. So you can do a PayPal donation and support us that way. Do we celebrate holidays? We do celebrate holidays, but we don't celebrate what we call, and no offense to anybody, but the man-made holidays. We don't celebrate the man-made holidays. We celebrate the biblical holidays, which are more commonly called the feasts and festivals. So in celebrating the biblical holidays, we've really only just started doing this about 3 years ago, because long story short, we started really getting stirred in our hearts and a little bit convicted about the man-made holidays and the consumerism involved in the man-made holidays. Just didn't sit right with us. So we were starting to hear from others like Chris and Tara Burton about not celebrating the man-made holidays, Christmas, Easter, so on and so forth, but maybe celebrating the biblical holidays instead. And they were really the first ones to try kind of challenge us with that thought. And that was 10 years ago or so. But it continued to come up. And once we were really convicted in our hearts about the consumerism of Christmas and Easter and all that, we started really thinking about it and praying about it. And we felt at peace, hey, let's go to the biblical holidays, because maybe those are the ones we're supposed to be celebrating anyways. So that's what we're working on, learning how to do that better, learning how to enjoy the feasts and festivals that are in the Bible and put those into practice. And traditions that we haven't created traditions for those yet. We're looking forward to doing that. All right, Scooter, so there's a question for you of, will you go to a university to study engineering? What do you think?
At this point, I just don't know.
What are your interests?
Well, I like blacksmithing, like working with different gears, mechanisms, electronics, all sorts of different things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just random different things.
What about experimenting with metals and
stuff like that too. Metals, chemicals, make different reactions.
so kind of like biology, science, and engineering? All of those are right along the lines of your interests.
Yeah.
If that becomes a desire of yours to go to college for that, do we discourage you or encourage you to do that?
I'd say you encourage me to.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us here at Thousands of Roots. This is one of the first Q&As that we've done. Maybe it's the second that we've had patrons chime in and ask these questions. So thank you for asking, and I hope you enjoy getting to know us a little more. We pray blessing over you and yours, and whatever you do with your whole heart.
Whatever you do, do it with your whole heart.